Welcome to today's explainer. Now, I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine you're a structural engineer, and someone just walked into your office and handed you the ultimate, foundational blueprints for how life, form, and even time itself are constructed. We're talking crisp blue ink on a cream grid, complete with data blocks and a legend that explains the literal math of the universe. Well, today we are unrolling those exact blueprints. We're diving into a mind-bending 2026 paper by researchers jean-claude Perez and E.A. May, and exploring a revolutionary framework known as the Perez-Hourglass aesthetic bond, or PHAB. Basically, it's a journey straight into the biomimetic mathematics of universal resonance.
And let's just jump right into the core thesis here, because it's a massive paradigm shift. For the longest time, biomimetics has basically been about looking at, say, a bird and saying, hey, let's make an airplane wing shaped kind of like that. It was mostly about visual inspiration. But the PHAB framework, it completely flips the script. It argues that nature isn't just something pretty to look at, it is a literal, profound mathematical engine that computes solutions using universal patterns. We aren't just copying shapes anymore. We are translating the actual math behind those shapes.
So, let's review the master schematic for our breakdown today. We'll be looking at 1. Nature's mathematical blueprint. 2. The Perez-Hourglass architecture. 3. Beauty as measurable resonance. 4. The geometry of life. 5. Time, ritual, and rhythm. And finally, 6. The biomimetic technology horizon. Let's dig into the plans.
Starting with Section 1, Nature's mathematical blueprint. Let's look at the foundational constants nature actually uses to achieve maximum efficiency.
Okay, so you've probably heard of the golden ratio and Fibonacci sequences. But we're not talking about abstract math you learn in school and never use again. These are the actual engines driving physical reality. Take the golden drive. It generates optimal phylotactic spiral packing in sunflowers, which is really just nature's incredibly clever way of cramming the absolute maximum number of seeds into a tiny, tiny space. And then you have Lichtenberg figures. Those are the stunning fractal branching patterns you see in lightning strikes or the veins of a leaf. They dictate scale-free efficiency literally everywhere, all the way down to the neural dendrites inside your own brain.
Moving to Section 2, the Perez-Hourglass architecture.
Meet the Perez-Hourglass. This macro structure is an absolute marvel. It acts as a 5,000-year bridge, uniting mathematical discoveries from completely different eras of human history. It connects the ancient Sumerian-based 60 math systems, which, by the way, is the whole reason we still have 60 seconds in a minute, all the way to modern fractals. If you look at the layout of this blueprint, you've got Pascal's triangle inhaling, expanding, and driving additive growth at the top in the northern hemisphere. And then the whole system exhales through subtraction, projecting the Lichtenberg sequence downward into the southern hemisphere.
Now check out the center pinch point on this schematic. This is where it gets crazy. The entire structure is actually one single, infinite, bidirectional Fibonacci thread, and it perfectly folds back on itself at a fixed center 0 point, specifically at the number 1. It is an integrated fractal architecture that completely redefines how we think about mathematical symmetry.
That brings us to Section 3, Beauty as measurable resonance.
This is where the theory gets genuinely breathtaking. The Perez-Hourglass aesthetic bond, or PHAB, frames subjective beauty not as some mysterious, fleeting, magical feeling, but as a quantifiable scientific problem. It posits that what we experience as beauty happens when your internal biological structures mathematically align with an external geometric stimulus. So beauty isn't just a vibe, it's a literal mathematical equation clicking perfectly into place.
Think of this equation as a cosmic lock and key right there in our data block. The internal lock is governed by something called PHFE, Perez-Hourglass fractal evolution dynamics, which are specifically located within sequences found in chromosome 1. The key, on the other hand, is the external resonant geometry of the environment around us. When that external math turns the lock of our internal biology, the result is immense structural stability that maximizes aesthetic resonance. We just happen to experience this mathematical alignment as aesthetic perfection.
And what's the universal common denominator holding all of this together? The number 1. 4 completely independent scientific domains, mathematics, biology, electromagnetism, and dynamics, all miraculously converge on this exact single structural key, the 1-degree interval. The golden angle? That's roughly 137.5 degrees. The fine structure constant in electromagnetism? That's 1 over 137. Notice a pattern? They all zero in on the exact same structural key.
And when we compare these master schemas visually, it proves something astonishing. Theorem 7 and 8 outline structural laws of parity and compression.
By applying them, we can see that the Mendeleev periodic table of elements in chemistry and our very own 64-codon genetic code in biology are basically operating as two floors of the exact same mathematical building. They completely share the same doubling and squaring architectural logic. It's mind-blowing.
Let's move to Section 4, the geometry of life. How does this blueprint actually breathe life into static math? Well, a perfect 360-degree circle is biologically flat. It's mechanically static. Dead, basically. To prevent catastrophic resonance closure, which is essentially a system freezing up and becoming completely rigid, nature relies on an exact -1-degree deficit. It is a tiny, brilliantly calculated perturbation that breaks static pentagonal symmetry.
And because of that tiny -1-degree deficit, we get a 17-degree twist. That specific twist converts a boring, inert circle into a living, three-dimensional biological form. It's mechanical play. It forces geometry into a living Fibonacci vortex, perfectly locking into the 14th Fibonacci number, which happens to be 377. Life literally exists in the gap created by that one missing degree.
What's amazing is how the PHAB blueprint spans across our different senses. The exact same golden drive shaping the physical spiral structure of a pine cone or a nautilus shell also creates acoustic coupling. The diapason field is centered right at 432 Hz, generating profound natural resonance. And that exact frequency architecture is naturally tapped into by Gregorian chants, Tibetan singing bowls, and African American spirituals. This is exactly why certain music physically feels so good to listen to. Your biology is literally resonating with the math of the sound.
We even see ancient humanity unconsciously encoding this sacred geometry into their spaces and symbols. Just look at the radial symmetry in Gothic cathedrals. Or even more fascinating, the exact 358 consecutive Fibonacci sequence is non-randomly embedded directly into the left pillar of the Kabbalistic tree of life. And that maps perfectly to the pinch point of the Perez hourglass we talked about earlier.
Which brings us to Section 5, time, ritual, and rhythm. Let's look at how this builds beyond just physical space.
Enter PHAB temporal. This dictates ceremonial time as a cycle, preparation, a climax of maximum resonance, and a smooth resolution. Underlying all of this is the evangelist sequence, 5-7-12-1931. This specific mathematical progression provides the hidden temporal architecture that explains why a 7-day week or a 12-month cycle actually feels natural and right to our human biology. It even maps out the incredibly complex rhythmic signatures you find in jazz and traditional Balkan music.
Finally, Section 6, the Biomimetic Technology Horizon.
This matrix translates our whole architectural tour today into the realm of modern cybernetics. For example, by applying Theorem 7's unique parity laws, which are derived directly from DNA error correction, we don't just get slightly better standard encryption. We unlock a mathematical foundation for unhackable, infinite-address post-quantum cryptography based entirely on the rules of DNA. And by mimicking DNA's noise-resilient replication, we can engineer AI memory capable of tolerating massive data corruption with absolutely no classical precedent.
And this is the ultimate horizon. Classical quantum computers require near-absolute zero cryogenic temperatures just to prevent the system from falling apart. But nature already runs a warm quantum field. By mimicking DNA's stable, error-resistant replication at a balmy 37 degrees Celsius inside the human body, the PHAB framework provides an architecture for a 377-qubit biomimetic quantum field. It points us directly toward room temperature, fault-tolerant quantum computing. It's a total game changer. We've unrolled the absolute blueprints of the universe today, from the DNA inside your cells to the architecture of time itself. But it leaves us with a massive question. If a single tiny 1-degree shift is all it took for nature to engineer life itself, what will happen when humanity finally learns to build with that exact same math? Keep pondering that blueprint until next time. Thanks for exploring with me on today's Explainer.